Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Raposo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Education Marketing Leader with Chris Raposo. Today, I have a special guest. His name is RJ Thompson, joining us from Pittsburgh, PA. RJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here. Really appreciate it. It's an honor.
It's an honor for me, sir. So a little bit of research about you before we jump into the episode and do the introduction. You are the manager of digital strategy at the University of Pittsburgh Health and Science. You also are the immediate past president of AMA Pittsburgh chapter. You're the program director of AIGA Pittsburgh, creative strategist at Public Plus, and you are also a professor of marketing and creative. RJ, tell us a little bit about your story. I know you started teaching at the age of 24. Tell us how you got to there and to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a practicing graphic designer for about 28 years. I'm 39 now, so you can do the math on when I got started professionally. I've been doing all manner of design my entire life. And from ages 11 to 18, like I experienced the whole spectrum of art and design, video, websites, coding, photography, illustration. I've done it all. And it was through that journey that I really discovered that design is but one aspect of communication, particularly it's visual communication. And through my experiences, I discovered that I really like telling stories through art, design, writing, create, and really focusing on emotional content as a means of either reinforcing how people feel or convincing them to feel a particular way. So visual rhetoric is absolutely a part of my interests here. And so how do I use line, shape, color, value, texture to get you to do what I want you to do? And so I explored design at the collegiate levels. I have an associate degree in graphic design, a bachelor's degree in graphic design. And just because I can't get enough of it, I also have a Master of Fine Arts degree in design from Savannah College of Art and Design, where I was a scholarship recipient. And it was right around the time that I started at SCAD with my MFA that I was recruited to teach at a small private Catholic university here in Pittsburgh. And the rest is history. From LaRoche University, I went to Carnegie Mellon University, which was absolutely mind-blowing to go from the small, tiny Catholic school to one of the biggest and best design schools in the entire world. And then from there, I bounced around to Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, finally landing at Youngstown State, where I became a tenured professor of interactive design. And I was there for 7 years before I left to bring my career back to Pittsburgh, where I've been living since 2003. I joined Pitt in 2019 in the business school, where I also started as an adjunct teacher, adjunct professor teaching marketing and advertising. And I've been in the business school teaching those two subjects ever since. But then I also started teaching design again at Point Park University, Community College of Allegheny County. And just recently, I joined the faculty of West Virginia University's Reed School of Media in the Integrated Marketing and Communications program, teaching digital storytelling. So I've got a lot going on there.
I know.
But
I saw that. And it's really impressive how accomplished you are. So it seems to me like you knew from an early age what you wanted to do with your life and you just pursued that.
Yes, and I think that that is accurate. But then also, I have a genetic illness called cystic fibrosis, which is commonly referred to as a child-killing disease. And I feel very blessed to be in such great health that I have enough energy to keep doing what I'm doing in the way that I want to do it. But that was also a specific motivator in being laser focused on my goals, career trajectory, and just exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And so that's helped keep me in check. It's helped keep me focused and helped me keep progressing forward.
Yeah, looking at your resume and your accomplishments, it looks like you're living life to the fullest intentionally.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. And for those that are listening, I have a head full of white hair. So, like, there's certainly some aging that came along with that because of the stress, but it's all good. It's all good.
Let's tell me a little bit about Plus Public. Is it your company?
Yeah. So outside of my teaching career and my day-to-day job as manager of digital strategy, I've always had the entrepreneurial bug. And so Plus Public is the fourth LLC that I've started in my life. My first agency, Zola Design, I started when I was 24, ran that for 5 years. So by the time I was 29, I had employees and interns, and I was losing sleep over accounts and trying to, lock down sales. But I was able to cultivate a significant amount of experience in a short amount of time. And that led me to starting two more companies, one of which I had partners. Eventually, I moved out of that company, which was called Shift Collaborative. It still exists to this day. And I started Plus Public. Plus Public is really based on my research in developing branded communication platforms for communities, post-industrial communities in revival. So think about some of the towns that maybe you grew up in, or your friends or your family grew up in, and at one time they were booming and successful, especially if they were steel towns, and now they're in really bad shape. So my research as a tenured faculty member was going into these communities using proprietary design thinking strategies to stimulate economic development and community engagement through the lens of marketing and design and communications to stimulate all kinds of activity, ranging from, it could be like revitalization efforts or bringing in investment from other communities into the one that I'm working with. And then from there, it expanded into doing more work for community-based nonprofits and public libraries, actually, which is a lot of fun to work with.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. So when I went to university, the professors that I liked the most were the ones that were also practitioners. So, you coming in from the entrepreneurial side, having your own company, teaching what you've learned to students that actually means something in the real world is incredibly valuable for these individuals that are going to your classes. So kudos to you. I really like what you talked about going into these uh, communities that used to have, for example, a steel mill or something, and it shut down. And with it went the community. That reminds me of a town called Jellicoe, Tennessee. It's right on the state line of Kentucky. So Jellicoe, Tennessee used to be a coal mining town.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since the coal mines shut down 20 years ago, that town went with it.
Yep.
11 miles north is Williamsburg, Kentucky. Williamsburg, Kentucky is home to University of Cumberland's. Is a drastic difference right there with the
Yep.
presence of the university there. This town is well preserved, somewhat booming. Jellicoe, Tennessee, it's a shadow of its former self. It's really sad to go through. So stuff like you did, I really appreciate that, and I hope that Jellicoe comes back strong in the future. So
Yeah, it can be really heartbreaking work. But that means it's good work and it's work worth doing, even if you don't necessarily accomplish your goals or see the total vision through to implementation. Like, uh, something is better than nothing, and nothing happens until someone gets excited. And all it takes is for one person to have a small idea that can blow up into a movement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now let's transition into the episode, talk a little bit about higher ed marketing and advertising. When we planned this episode a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned during our intro call that you are fascinated with the idea that we should advertise education itself rather than the institution. What have you observed, some of the traditional marketing approaches where higher ed marketers now solely focus on the institution, on the infrastructure? How can we change that to go back to the roots to actually mention and communicate the value of education?
Yeah, see, herein lies the rub. Like, I'm not seeing enough of it. What I am seeing a lot of is marketers doing what they do, serving their institutions, serving their brand, creating the proper brand narratives across a very strategic and tactical journey. We're all doing that work. I myself am doing that work. But my experience in some of these, communities in revival, and especially working also at a community college, and having been in the classroom for 15 years, my perspective is being informed by so many different types of stimuli. For example, like, yeah, we're doing the work, and we're promoting our brands and the products that we have. I use the term products, even though that is sort of not the best word for higher ed, but if you frame a degree as a product, it completely changes the perspective on how it's marketed, how it's, tactically executed, all of those things. But a lot of these communities that I've worked in, they need all the help that they can get. And one of the things that they are experiencing is a concept called brain drain. All of their talent, all of their collective, all of their great thinkers, all of the potential in a particular community flees that community because there is no opportunity. And the perception here is that if opportunity does not already exist for these great thinkers, then of course they have to go elsewhere. My position is, if we spend enough time talking about the virtues and practices and principles of education in general, all of these great thinkers will discover that the opportunities that are there or are not there is irrelevant. They are the ones that can create their own opportunity, and education creates opportunity. And so I would love to see an institution come into a community and just talk about learning, talk about education, and not promote their program, or even have like banners of their university logo and all kinds of displays. Like, let's just talk about the things that matter. And that is people, making them better, making them smarter, using education as a conduit through which to create their own opportunities, to meet their vision for themselves, their idealized self-concept, and then to exceed that. I think that the best universities that embrace that methodology, that narrative, are going to see dividends across the board. Because, I, being a Pitt professor or CCAC professor, if I go into those communities and have that exchange, those people are going to be like, wow, this guy completely turned me on to something I never thought of before. Maybe I should go to the school that he's teaching. And so, like, that connection there is just sort of obvious and automatic. But for me, it's even more than that, because with education comes experience and opportunity, but most importantly, choice. Like, I don't even necessarily, if I go out to a community and I just talk about education and providing opportunity through education, whatever that conversation looks like, however it manifests, and someone chooses to go to a competing school or a school that I don't teach at, fine. Who cares? That's still better for them. When we are all reaching for more in life and more education and more experience, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I think universities really need to embrace that without any strings attached, especially in communities in revival, and especially with students that are going to school for the first time in their life, going to, students that are going to college for the first time, but also students that are the first people in their families going to college. Yeah. And, I think that especially in these rural areas, communities in revival, that is still very prevalent, and as important as it's ever been to discuss and talk about.
Absolutely. And especially relevant for the first generation students that are coming out of an environment that has not had the background of higher education. If they can find somebody like you going into their community, talking about the value of education, how to get them out of a certain situation, to get them to your school because they want to learn under you. It's like the ancient practice of, if you go back to the rabbinical times in ancient Israel, the Saul learned under Gamaliel, and then when these rabbis went to these towns, they had followers throughout their life, right? So it wasn't like an institution that these people followed. They followed these thought leaders. This is the word in higher and in B2B marketing or marketing in general is thought leadership, right? So more about talking about following that person that you want to learn from. And then the other thing, communicating the value of education itself, is you fight what people say, like, you don't want to just go to school to get a degree on a wall and that's it after that, right? You want to learn how to learn, because lifelong learning is essential in growing your career. So if you just go to school to go finish a test and then be done with it to get a degree, you'll be stuck where you are. You're not going to evolve unless you learn how to learn.
Yes. There's a sort of anecdote that I recite to my students, but not even to just my students, but prospective high school students. Occasionally I teach in my daughter's school. I teach K-6, like just as a substitute, and I share this with them as well. So obviously my interests in teaching people are across the whole spectrum, but the anecdote is never stop learning, be it self-taught or school learning. And that resonates with me because I think it is a testament to empowerment, and how through education you can become empowered to discover and create your own opportunities. But to your point, like, we're a capitalistic society. It's competition, and everyone, the cream rises to the top, so to speak. And I believe that every human has so much capability and talent, and creativity, most importantly. And a lot of those things are often not tapped and nurtured. And you had said a phrase, learning how to learn. That's one of the things that I teach my students, is how to develop a creative problem solving process that works for you relative to how your brain thinks. And we all think differently. So for example, I mentioned I ran an agency, my first agency. I only hired people that could illustrate. They could do other things, but out of all of their skills, every single one of them could illustrate. And the reason for that is they saw the world from a completely different angle, and they were able to execute that vision through their hand in their own unique way. Having been an illustrator a long time ago, I knew the value of that skill and the perspective that it brought, even if I sacrificed my illustration skills to learn others. So how people think and what that untapped potential is really exciting to me. And tapping into that, releasing it, is as simple as telling someone, hey, you're good enough to learn anything. And going to a community where, and I grew up in one where there were so many people that felt like they weren't capable, or they didn't have the opportunity, or they didn't see it, their talent for themselves. Just being able to say, like, you can do this. It may take you a long time to get there, but all you got to do is take the first step. That kind of cheerleading is something I want to see more of, versus, oh, our degree has a 97% placement rate and average salaries of $65,000. I think a lot of people, that is, for as many people as that resonates with, it also does not resonate with.
Yeah, and you may be the only one who speaks that sort of life into these people. You know, they may have never heard that before. They may think they're not cut out for higher education. Maybe they're, just bound to work on construction like their dad and their granddad did. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I worked on construction for 4 years, but it wasn't my life. So I immigrated to the United States to find a better life for myself. But some
Yeah.
people don't have that opportunity. So when they have people like you, cheerleaders, to come in to give them that hope, that vision, that there's more for them out there, it's very valuable.
And this really speaks to my teaching experience. But one thing I would encourage your listeners to do is to teach something to someone. It could be something really silly and frivolous. It could be something meaningful or tangible or experiential. But I think that everyone needs to have that experience of seeing someone's eyes light up, seeing a new perspective form, seeing someone realize that they could do something that they never thought that they could before. It could be as simple as, teaching someone how to ride a bike, or even doing a small doodle on a sheet of paper, or I don't know, using command keys on your keyboard to do like an alpha character. It does not matter. I think some people, once they do that, they'll realize, like, there's something here. It's exciting. Every moment, ideally, the realization that they have is every moment in life, especially when you're relational and you're interacting with other people, every moment allows for a moment to learn and a moment to teach. And through that exchange, you realize that it's also symbiotic, but it also feels great. It raises your self-esteem. It makes you feel better. It's positivity. And you are adding more facets to yourself, and you're able to be empowered to shape and mold yourself and the next thing that you do. And this is actually a criticism that I have of those that work in like higher ed marketing. And of course I say this with respect, but in the classroom, when I ask my students to like make an ad campaign, let's say it's for a restaurant, I tell them, before you do anything, go to the restaurant, experience the food, experience the service, time the waiters, time the waitresses, time the see how long it takes for you to get your food, analyze every single aspect of this experience. Come back to the classroom, tell me if it's worth advertising. If it is, give me an idea. You need to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk. I interact with so many higher ed marketers and communicators that have never been in a classroom, and that's not a criticism, but they've never actually taught anything to anybody. And I'm thinking, like, if you really want to embrace advertising education, you have to experience education in all of its facets. And again, it can be minimal. Everyone's been a student. We've all had varying experiences. We know what it's like being the recipient of an education. But you need to teach something to someone to understand the other part to this relationship. And I would argue the thought leaders in the higher ed marketing space, they're the ones that are also teaching people. And they're able to have a fully realized vision of what it is to communicate about education, but then to also advertise it and make it appealing enough to convince someone to invest in themselves and a boatload of money into their degree.
Absolutely. And they're teaching as they're presenting at conferences, right? It's a sort of form of teaching. It doesn't have to be in the classroom. It could be
100%.
a webinar. Like I put on a lot of webinars. Sometimes I speak at webinars and I'm thinking to myself, I'm speaking to these people like you, being in the industry for so many years. I'm like, feel like a fraud, but sometimes you just got to get over yourself, right? Because sometimes what you think is extremely basic and everybody should know, there are people out there that may not know the particular angle that you're coming in from, and it may give them an idea for something new. So you add value through stepping out of your comfort zone. And, I think it's very valuable what you just said over there. Just need to teach some people to do something. Same with this podcast, right? It's a form of teaching people.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. You're doing it. I'm doing it. Many of our peers are. I want everyone to have a podcast if they felt so inspired, or to do a webinar, or go speak at a conference, or write a paper, or even just message someone on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I really like the work that you're doing. I would like to learn from you. Can you just tell me how you did that?" Um, it, I, if you can't tell, I'm like a huge extrovert. I'm just like a full force of concussive energy, just in one direction. And I always encourage people to reach out to me. I will happily share my time to teach someone something. But they have to self-identify. They have to make that commitment to even just going outside of themselves and just saying hello. It's as simple as that. So open call, folks. If there's something you think I can teach you, I'd be happy to try.
yeah, I don't know if you follow Simon Sinek or if you heard of any of his stuff, but he talks about one example to not be afraid to be the idiot in the room, where
Oh,
you heard
yeah.
that one?
Yes, I love being the idiot in the room. And I intentionally am sometimes the idiot in the room. Like, for example, like when I do a client intake meeting, and I could be very familiar with the subject and the project at hand, I ask everyone to explain it to me as if I were 14. Dumb it down. I don't have a whole lot of world experience. Do not use a very eloquent vocabulary. Keep it basic, keep it foundational, keep it low to the ground. And that can be a challenge for some folks, right? But I love being the idiot in the room, because it clears it, it clears a plate. Everyone is on an equivalent standing. And so creating understanding can happen equivalently. And so that's one thing that I like about that. And sometimes, like, I'll purposely be wrong on some things. I will actually make myself look like a jackass because I'm trying to elicit a particular response, not to get a rise out of someone, but to get them to talk about the thing that they care about the most in the most passionate way that they care about it.
Yeah, and that shows a lot of humility on your part that you do that because you're so accomplished, that you don't say, "Hey, look at me, I'm smarter than anybody else." But if you do that, that makes you approachable as well. So that makes people want to come to you in the first place, right? And the other thing, what we talked about, especially with the demographic enrollment cliff looming, there is going to be a rise in non-traditional students as well as first-generation students that will not understand the academic jargon. So you have to simplify it on your website if you want to move them down the funnel, right?
Yep, absolutely. And those demos, or rather those segments, have their own very specific set of primary cares. If you are a non-traditional student, let's say you're in your early 40s, and I've had students like this, they have extremely busy lives, they have children, they have maybe part-time jobs or full-time jobs that they're not fully satisfied with. And so, like, their goal is time to completion. I need to get this done quickly at the highest possible level using the highest quality assets. I need the best outcome possible, even though they fully know that they cannot 100% commit to the rigors that they are asking for.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. That is so true. Because I graduated as a non-traditional adult learner at the age of 39, and I had 2 kids, and my last one was born in my senior year, so I had one more year, and used to go part-time, and I said to my wife, I'm going to have to go full-time to just get it done
Yep.
because time's on my side. And I communicated to her and to my family. I said, the next year is going to suck. Okay. It's just going to suck. So it's going to be very busy. I'm not going to have time for anything, and then, you just have to understand that some of these people, and then mortgage, work, were competing priorities with school. So I was like, okay, let's just get it done. And I can't do any extracurricular stuff. It's just not going to happen. I'm not that kind of student, the traditional student who has that kind of time. You have to understand it as well.
So to that point, like non-traditional learners, for example, know that while they want for the best, they may not be able to get it, not through any fault of the program, but through fault of themselves, but really through fault of life in general. But that is the kind of attitude that you want. You want all students to always be wanting for more, to rise above whatever the stressors are in their life, right? And to rise above that. And coming back full circle to the point on just the benefit of just education. Hey, Chris, we know that you've got an incredibly busy life. Life happens at the speed of light, right? Just do your best. Don't try to go above and beyond unless you want to, but just try to be your best, because even approaching consistently towards that optimal state, your best, is, I think, more than enough. Also, hey, we're the university. We've got resources for you to help you in your goal, in your quest, essentially. There needs to be more of that. This year alone, and I'm speaking as a person with a disability, albeit an invisible disability, but this year alone, I've encountered more students with undiagnosed learning disabilities, undiagnosed extreme anxiety disorders, ADHD, OCD, whatever. And they don't even know that their universities can be a resource in helping them alleviate some of those mental health challenges or learning disabilities. They have no idea. And so when I encounter that, I'll say to a student, listen, I think that you're having trouble in this class because I think you're dyslexic. Please do not confirm that unless you feel like self-identifying. But before you do, I'm going to have you go talk to this counselor in student disabilities, and they're going to get the ball rolling on this paperwork. And now you are protected. I am protected. We can work together to give you the best education we each can possibly create together under this protective shield. I benefited from that as a student. And a lot of these students do not have their own advocates. They can't even advocate for themselves because they don't know these resources exist. So take one step back. You think about these communities in revival. All of these students need those kinds of support. Irrespective.
It takes a lot of empathy on your part, though, right? To even step out of your comfort zone and out of your lane to say that to somebody, because as a professor, you may just be like, hey, I'll deal with this kid for 3 months and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that. But going the extra mile is saying, hey, we got these resources that you might not know about. Go ahead and see somebody. It's your choice at the end, but I just want to have the best for you. But how do higher marketers communicate that so people that go to universities that don't have faculty like you know about these resources?
So that becomes a cultural, institutional dilemma, right? And so in a university's marketing, you need to be able to talk the talk, walk the walk. You say as you do as you say. And if those supports aren't there, and it's cutting out a massive segment of prospective students, invest the money in the supports and then promote the crap out of those supports. It's really not terribly difficult. And it's not a chicken or egg situation. It's like you recognize a need, you fulfill the need, you promote your efficacy through providing that need. And there will be returns. Right? It might not be easy. It might be very difficult, but that doesn't make it any less worth it. Coming back to that point on empathy, In high school, I was a student with a learning disability. They made me do an IQ test, right? And they said that, and maybe I'm egotistical, but the summary was above average intelligence. I'm like, okay, I'll take
I
it.
can see that. I can see that.
Above average intelligence, okay. But I was diagnosed with like a learning disability in math. All right. So I have trouble doing math on paper, but you set me in front of a computer to do coding, and I am electric. I am all over it. What is programming? It's mathematics. It's logic, right? I realized that I did not have good teachers that understood how to fully embrace and understand my skills. So if those same teachers that were teaching me algebra also knew that I could, program a website or my own application at 15 years old, they would have found a different way to teach me algebra. But that wasn't there. The empathy wasn't there. And so that's one of the reasons why I am the way that I am, right? Because I knew that I had the talent, the intelligence, the treasure, the time, all of it. And I had to advocate for myself and discover it for myself. And not a lot of people have that. And so when it comes to like, marketing a university that is willing to make that investment, oh my God, it's like you've got the best sandbox to play in the world, because there are an infinite amount of stories that you could tell about educational success without having strings attached to them. And I think those are stories really worth telling. And an institution that understands that, they're going to be able to leverage that in their marketing playbook and blow up. I think it's kind of a recipe for success.
Yeah, I love the example that you gave about the math on paper where you weren't able to excel in it, but then on the screen you were able to, and you found that out because if you would have stuck to only doing the algebra on paper, it's like the fish who's being judged by his ability to climb a tree. He'll go through life thinking he's an idiot, right? But you were able to reframe that and go another direction and go into the lake.
Yeah. And, with respect to my story, you know what it ended up being? Anxiety. It was nothing to do with my capability to learn or express my education. It had everything to do with anxiety. And so I can spot those students from a mile away. And it's more widespread than you think, especially for first ever in their family college students, or college students in rural areas, communities in revival. Like, it is so much more prevalent. It's like higher ed is an anxiety bomb in and of itself. And so, radical empathy, and if you can express that radical empathy through your marketing, your communications, oh man, I mean, it's going to speak for itself. And an institution that maybe doesn't have that particular brand spirit or that pillar within their greater brand structure, as soon as they introduce that, it's going to change the paradigm completely.
Yeah. Give me one piece of advice you would give a higher ed marketer who wants to move from an institutional focus to an educational focused narrative.
Experience education. I don't necessarily think you have to be a full-on professor or adjunct or a teacher or have to go back to graduate school. I think it's all about imparting wisdom over something that you believe in or are passionate about, and expressing that to someone in a way that they can easily understand it, digest it, and act on it, and they improve as a result. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's really where it starts. I got the itching bug when I reviewed a student's portfolio, and I realized that student was not going to have the career that they were told that they were going to. And I mean, God love them, the portfolio was awful and they were sold a bill of goods. And so I'm like, I have to get into education to help solve this problem. And if it means I'm brutally honest, but extremely empathic in the process, then they will still be better for it. And I've had to be that way with some students that when they graduate, they're still shaky in terms of, their self-confidence, their self-esteem, but they get that first job. And then they get the second job, and then they really start their career in earnest, and they never thought they would be able to. I would say to that marketer, open a door. Just to anybody for anything, just open a door and let them walk through it, or not even let them walk through it. Encourage them to do so, because ultimately that's their choice to walk through it. But just open a door, and that's where it starts.
Amen. I love that. Talking about portfolio, I think you got something in the works regarding that, don't you?
I do, yeah. I'm going to be working on a mini series of podcasts focused on the creation, design, and management, and ultimately the execution and perception of the portfolio. But not just for graphic designers, but for marketers, for communicators, writers, all manner of creative professionals. I teach a lot of students that graduate with maybe high honors that don't have a portfolio, and they're not getting the jobs that they want. Meanwhile, their competition walks into an interview with a printed portfolio or a PDF of work samples, and they're getting those jobs, even if they are less qualified or less talented or less competitive. And I want to see all marketers, communicators, designers have portfolio. The portfolio is a staple in design education, in the design profession. It needs to be one for marketers and communicators as well.
It's a big differentiator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the portfolio does the talking for you when you are not present. Have you ever gotten a job without interviewing for it? I have. That's the portfolio. That's the power that it has. And I want everyone to have that power, and to be empowered to cultivate that for themselves. But additionally, and perhaps lastly, when all creative professionals have a meaningful portfolio, that raises the standards of our disciplines. It strengthens our disciplines. It reinforces what we're teaching, and it creates resilience. And the portfolios are a true celebration of our design capabilities, our marketing capabilities, our writing capabilities. Have some pride, show it off.
Amen to that, RJ. RJ, it was such a thought-provoking episode. Really appreciate your insights. If somebody wants to learn from you, how can they connect with you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in RJ Thompson. You'll see this picture. Or if you're listening, it's just a picture of me with a beard and red glasses. Please reach out, say hello. I'm more than happy to talk, because again, if I teach you something, you can teach me something in turn. And I love that reciprocity. So you can find me there, and you can email me at rjt49@pitt.edu.
Very good. I'll be sure to tag you in the show notes as we when I publish the episode. So RJ, I learned a lot from you today. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you, Chris. It was great. Let's do it again.
Take care.
All right.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into the show today. If you enjoyed it, don't keep it to yourself. Share with your friends in your network. And if you have a moment, I would really appreciate a review of the podcast. That'll help other people find the show as well. Tune in every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. when I release another episode. Take care now. Have a good one, friends.